I'm Candice Malcolm, and this is the Candice Malcolm Show. We have a great episode for you today, folks, and I hope you enjoyed our interview that we did with Premier Danielle Smith, the Alberta Premier. That is up and available on YouTube now, so go check that out if you haven't already. And I'm going to ask you to do me a quick favor and just like this video. It really helps us with the algorithm. Here on YouTube, we want to be discovered by as many Canadians as possible. Okay, so when I interviewed Premier Danielle Smith, this bill had just been announced, and we didn't really have time to go through it all on that show and in that interview. So I want to spend a bit of time talking about Bill C5 on the show today and how it really changed. It could potentially really change our country and Canada, do some things that are deeply needed in order to get our economy back on track. But it creates a real problem for Prime Minister Mark Carney. It is a serious departure from Liberal policy and basically like the core of the Liberal Party for the past 10 years under the former leader Justin Trudeau. So we're going to walk you through all of that today. First, Bill C5. I'm going to show this clip. Here is the Prime Minister on Friday alongside Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Internal Trade Minister Chrystia Freeland announcing this new bill on Friday here. Let's play that clip.
With the One Canadian Economy Bill, we are aligning federal rules and regulations with those from the provinces and territories, helping to create one market, not 13. The second component of the bill enables the federal government to identify and expedite nation-building projects. Canada is a country that used to build big things, but in recent decades, it's become too difficult to build in this country.
Now, all of that is completely true. And this is all what has come out of that First Minister's meeting that happened in Saskatoon last week. They were sort of teasing this, and here it is. Now, I want to read from the Toronto Star. I don't usually point to something from the Toronto Star, but this is an op-ed, an opinion article, sorry, written by Althea Raj, who is sort of one of the main people at the Toronto Star these days. And this is what her headline says. She says, Mark Carney can't be allowed to ram through his plan to build big, right? So for people like me and maybe people like you, when we see a bill that plans to just get things done, get things built, and get our economy back on track, that's like music to our ears, right? But to someone like Althea Raj, to readers of the Toronto Star, to the sort of base of the Liberal Party and what that party has been built under the last 10 years, this is like a calamity. It is like a disaster that cannot happen. And so I'm going to read a bit from Althea Raj just so you get an idea of how how people in liberal world are thinking right now. So she says, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so on Friday, when Prime Minister Mark Carney announced his new omnibus bill that gives cabinet the right to circumvent environmental laws in the name of getting big resource projects built, perhaps it was noteworthy that Environment and Climate Minister Julie Dabryson was not one of the 5 cabinet ministers serving as the Prime Minister's backdrop. Yes, so for Liberals, it is very concerning that the climate minister, the environment minister, wasn't there, wasn't part of it, even though, frankly, it doesn't really have to do with the environment, right? It's the idea is that it's part the first part of this bill is free trade and labor mobility, so getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers. That was Mark Carney's pledge on the election campaign. He said it was going to happen by Canada Day. That is why Chrystia Freeland was there. And then the second part of the bill is the Building Canada Act, the bill that's supposed to just, get big resource projects built, right? So neither of those are really to do with the environment, but you can see for a Liberal, that is very disturbing and very upsetting. So Althea Raj says, Bill C5 was quickly panned by Indigenous groups, human rights organizations, and environmental non-for-profits, alarmed by the government's actions. She goes on, she says the bill is actually 2 pieces of legislation. That's sort of what I just explained. And then she says this is the type of legislation that Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper might have been too timid to bring forward, fearing a public backlash. It hands over sweeping decision-making powers to one cabinet minister in untransparent ways. It gives cabinet the ability to delete environmental laws from consideration and creates a dangerous precedent that should be looked at with a fine-tooth comb, despite the vehement opposition from the Bloc Québécois, the NDP, and the Green Party. It may still sail through the Commons with the support of the Conservatives. Wow. Imagine that, folks. The Liberals and the Conservatives teaming up to build a pro-Canada, pro-infrastructure, pro-energy bill. I did not expect this. I did not expect to see this from Mark Carney. I want to continue just a little bit further from Althea Raj's piece here, because again, I really think it paints the picture of the problem for Mark Carney. I think that the knives are starting to come out for Mark Carney. It starts with someone like Althea Raj, who is in touch with the Liberal Party base. She is friendly with people and Liberal insiders. So this is clearly what she is hearing from her friends who are the ones who used to be in Justin Trudeau's inner circle. And maybe they're on the outs with Mark Carney. I'm just guessing, but that it seems to be where this is going. So she says that the bill will also allow cabinet to ignore laws it doesn't want to abide by. For example, if the government is worried about the outcome of a review triggered by the Canadian Environmental Protection Act, it could delete the act from consideration. If the minority Liberal government is defeated next year, the law would allow the next Prime Minister, say current Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, to delete all 13 laws and 7 regulations used to evaluate and consider such projects. She continues and says, when pressured in the Commons on Monday about the bill representing a backward step for environment and democracy, House Leader Stephen McKinnon responded that C5 is an answer to an economic crisis provoked by our neighbors to the south and a commercial crisis. And then it says Carney wants to fast track this bill through Parliament at breakneck speed. This is all really interesting, right? This is, again, saying that we have an issue with the economy. And Mark Carney has said that he is going to come forth with a plan. The idea that environmental laws were put in place to block projects is the problem. That is the problem that the prime minister needs to overcome because, particularly under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, they let the environment minister go way too far and put way too many restrictions to the point where we can't get anything built. That's why Bill C-69 is called the No New Pipelines Bill, because they made it so onerous to get an environmental review done that it's literally designed to never allow anything to get built ever. And so this is just Mark Carney simply saying a lot of those laws that were made in the past need to go, right? And it's a lot easier to do it through a bill like this than it would be to try to fight back on each of those individual laws. So from my perspective, folks, this is good news. I don't say this lightly. I don't come out and compliment Mark Carney and the Liberals very often, if ever, frankly. But when I see something I like, I'm going to say it. And I think that this is something that can be very good for the country, very good for Canada. And so the question that's sort of come up from all of this is, do we need a consensus when it comes to pipelines? Does every single party in the country, every single person, every single interest group have to agree? Well, if that's the case, we're just never going to get anything built. And that is pretty much exactly what Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, had to say. So here he is speaking to reporters on Monday and just basically saying it like it is. Let's play that clip.
I think, like Mark Carney, there needs to be consensus to go forward with these big nation-building projects.
No, we've got to get it done. We need a pipe. At the end of the day, if you wait till everybody agrees on everything, nothing will happen. You're never going to get everybody to agree on every single project.
Now, that is 100% correct, 100% true, and interesting that we could start to see some kind of points of agreement between Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and, yes, the Liberal Prime Minister Mark Carney. But again, it will come down to whether Mark Carney can stand up to the extremists in his own party, whether this is, his party and he's going to lead it and this is the direction he's going to go, or whether he's going to, get overtaken by the same forces. I mean, again, this was Justin Trudeau's party up until about 6 months ago. And so, we can pretend that with a new leader, it's a totally different direction, but he has to bring the rest of his party with him. And again, judging from that Althea Raj piece, it doesn't seem like he has it. Now, folks, we're going to spend quite a bit of time over the next few weeks talking about the G7 meeting. It is coming up at the end of next week. I really think that this is the thing that Mark Carney has been waiting his entire life to do. I think part of the reason he wanted to become Prime Minister of Canada was so that he could lead Canada during these G7 meetings. Is an important one. It's in Canada, and it's representing the 50th anniversary of the organization. Now, I just want to quickly note this, that Mark Carney put out his 3 objectives, his 3 priorities for the G7. And it has nothing to do with Justin Trudeau and his woke agenda. It is actually quite a grown-up, mature priorities. Again, something that you might see from a conservative government. So these are the core objectives that Mark Carney is trying to put forth during the G7. Number 1, protecting our communities and the world. So strengthening our national security against foreign interference and transnational crime. Number two is building energy security and accelerating the digital transformation. So he's talking about fortifying critical mineral supply chains, using AI and quantum to unleash economic growth. And number three, securing the partnerships of the future, catalyzing enormous private investment to build stronger infrastructure, create higher paying jobs. Again, I'm here for it. This sounds a lot like a conservative. And the third thing that sounds a lot like a conservative, Carney has unveiled his plan to hit 2% defense spending as NATO goal. We all know that NATO requires that every country spend 2% of their GDP on defense. Canada never gets anywhere close to that. So Mark Carney is saying it's happening. It's going to happen. And now NATO is now looking at a 5% target. So beefing up national security, beefing up defense sounds good to me. Again, it'll all come down to whether this is going to stay. This is going to be the Liberal government if 2025 is going to stay the course, or whether Mark Carney is just inevitably going to cave to those liberal, environmentalist, globalist interests. I'm not saying which way I think will happen because I'm not sure. Time will tell. But I will just say, quite interesting. Now, in a bit of a relish of the past, and this is an interesting one, Premier Danielle Smith reunites a feud with Stephen Guilbeault over his plans for Canada's national parks. So I'm going to read a little bit from Rahim Mohammed's piece in the National Post on Monday. He writes that Guilbeault, former Greenpeace activist, was shuttled out of the environmental portfolio in March by Prime Minister Mark Carney, but he was kept in cabinet and he is now the minister responsible for Parks Canada. Now, this puts him in charge of implementing the Liberals' campaign promise to create at least 10 new national parks and protect 30% of public lands by 2030. According to Parks Canada's website, the agency is currently vetting 4 proposed national parks and protected areas, including northern Manitoba watershed on the Hudson's Bay, and which is one possible destination for future oil shipments. So, of course, the concern here is that Stephen Guilbeault is a zealot. He is a crazy person, and he is obsessed with blocking our energy resource development to protect what he calls protect the environment. Now, Danielle Smith called him out on this on her weekly radio show. So I'm going to play an audio clip here of Danielle Smith saying that Stephen Guilbeault has an overt motive to establish new federally protected parks in the path of pipelines and other critical energy infrastructure, and that she will not allow him to do that if she has any power over it. So let's play that clip.
All right, here's a texter in. I think he's questioning or wondering whether Stephen Guilbeault has some ulterior motives. He said, with Stephen Guilbeault stating that he will be creating new federal parks, do you have a plan to counteract this action should these be another land grab to stop Alberta from getting oil or LNG pipelines built?
I don't think he has an ulterior motive. I think he has an overt motive to do exactly what that texter said. We've already put legislation in place. I do not want to see one additional acre of territory that's within Alberta turned into a federal park, urban or national or otherwise.
Okay, and I'm very excited to announce a new contributor here at Juno News. We have a new show with Melanie Bennet. So Melanie Bennet is a researcher and an investigative journalist with True North Wire, and she is host of the new show called Disrupted that will appear here on Juno News. So Melanie, welcome to the network and welcome to the Candice Malcolm Show.
Oh, thank you for having me. So pleased to be here.
Okay, well, I want to give a little bit of a tease to our audience of what kind of things that they can expect. Now, I think here at the Candice Malcolm Show and at Juno News, part of the reason we built this company is to combat the worst excesses of the woke left and how it's really taken over parts of our culture, specifically around education and government. And so I want you to talk a little bit about, what kind of topics you're going to be covering and what people can expect from your show.
So far, I've spent a lot of time investigating the, I suppose, ideological excesses in our education system, mostly in Ontario, but also other parts of Canada. And I would like to bring that to the audience at Juno News. So there'll be that and other political, cultural analysis as it comes along. So a little bit different for Juno, but should be interesting.
Great. Well, let's talk about the story that you just broke on Monday, yesterday. Elementary teachers told to decolonize minds at an anti-white seminar. I read about this, and I think it is probably the most racist thing I've ever heard happen in a Canadian school. So can you walk us through this one?
I attended a seminar, a union anti-racism or anti-Black racism seminar in the spring on my own. I wasn't a journalist then. I was just a member of the public. Obviously, I have an interest in these sorts of topics. And I saw that this particular union, the Elementary Teachers of Toronto Union, had opened their conference to members of the public. So, I phoned up the union. I said, listen, can I come? I use my real name, or why would I, use any other name? And so I attended this conference, and I knew it was going to be rather interesting when I saw one of the talks was decoding whiteness in parent-caregiver interactions, which is the real reason that I wanted to go, which is in the article that I shared. And it didn't disappoint. I was absolutely there to learn whether or not my own research into critical race theory and culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, which I talk a lot about, was what I thought it was if I was among supporters of it, and it really is. I was shocked of the level of what felt very much like anti-white racism, and that's something that I've tried not to a term that I've tried not to use, because I was like, well, I know in the literature they're very careful to say this is not anti-white, but it really felt like that coming from some of the things that were said there, some of the questions from the audience, and I wanted to convey that in the article that I wrote. So I included some clips so people could sort of see for themselves that even though they say that the concept of disrupting and dismantling whiteness is about disrupting and dismantling a system, that often this gets lost in translation and can very much turn, or at least very much seems like it turns into bigotry against white people. And I think, I think I did that in the article. I think people can see that for themselves.
Well, we do have a clip. This is from an individual named Michelle Monroe, who I'm guessing is one of the leaders of this conference that you attended. And she told participants that educators are shaped and trained in a white system, and that the curriculum is a way to cover a white curriculum. So let's play this audio that you uncovered from this meeting.
So whiteness has an influence education, right? Many of our educators are trained in a white system. The curriculum they cover is a white curriculum. The way in which it's delivered, so why would they end up in our classrooms with something different?
So you can see for yourself there, folks, what kind of things we're dealing with here. Another story, Melanie, that you broke last week came from the Waterloo School Board. And the headline is School Board trains staff that the term family is harmful and racist. And so can you walk us through this story as well?
Absolutely. That was a training that was leaked to me. And when I went through, I recognized many of the principles of critical race theory that I'd been studying. And so this very much reflected those principles. And I felt it was important for people to understand that this is the foundational basis, it seems, for most of the anti-oppressive education. And so this is what it looks like. This particular training. Now, the article focused on the family, but does go into a little bit more detail about sort of the broader ideology. And it certainly caught the attention of the Waterloo District School Board, who, since that article, actually put out a statement acknowledging that this is their training, which is something different. I mean, there's lots of material that's been coming out of schools for a long time, but this school board acknowledged it, which was really great that they acknowledged it. They did say, however, that my article lacked context. I did reach out to them for that context before the article and since the article, and I haven't received it. But that is very much, I think that's a really important detail, that at least they're acknowledging that they're doing this now.
Well, I guess it's some progress, but I mean, looking at these slides, I can't really wrap my head around the fact that this is part of the curriculum that at least they're teaching teachers. I don't know how much of it is getting passed along to students, but folks, you can see, and for the listening audience, one slide here says unpacking whiteness. Whiteness is a system. We have been conditioned to be part of the system. Whiteness is a construct that allows white supremacy to flourish. And then when it comes to the family, dismantling whiteness, words matter. The word family is identified as harmful by our racialized students. It implies values of male authority and hierarchy. It It implies a nuclear family structure, not the same for everyone, niceness. It asks for obedience. So I guess they're not supposed to use the term family because it's racist. Is that what they're teaching here, Melanie?
Yes, in a roundabout way, because a nuclear family is what they're specifically referring to. A nuclear family is part of the white dominant culture, and a white dominant culture is oppressive because it is a hegemonic culture. And so to disrupt and dismantle whiteness, we must disrupt and dismantle the nuclear family. And so this is, again, all in line with critical race theory. I just wanted to add that since this particular article went viral all over the place, frankly, my Twitter's been attacked and I've been suspended. You can't actually. I posted those slides, all of the slides that I had on my Twitter, and you can't see them right now. They've been censored off the internet. So I wanted people to go look at it for themselves so they could see it's not just that slide. It's all the other slides are in line with what this particular slide is saying, and you can't even go look at it right now.
Well, it's shocking. I thought that Elon Musk bought Twitter so that we would move away from this type of censorship that happens, but it certainly does. It happens to us here on YouTube sometimes as well, Melanie. Well, thank you so much for your reporting. I mean, this is clearly a widespread problem, and I'm very glad that we have someone on the team that is just exposing it and letting the public know this is what is happening at our schools. And if we want it to stop, we have to first be aware of it and then make our voices heard. So thanks so much, Melanie. We're really looking forward to seeing your show.
All right, thank you.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Candice Malcolm. This is the Candice Malcolm Show. We'll be back again tomorrow with all the news. Thank you and God bless.
You're watching Juno News, Canada's fastest growing independent news network. Our team works day and night to bring you nationwide coverage of the issues that matter. Honest reporting of the stories that put Canadians first. From far and wide, Juno is doing the work to turn the dial in the right direction, bringing you the news from the field and in the studio. Wherever it takes us, we get the job done. For you and for Canada. Help us replace the CBC. Subscribe today at junonews.com.